The moment my mother-in-law ruined her son's life came wrapped in pearls and a glass of expensive champagne. It was a warm Sunday afternoon, and I was clearing the table after a family brunch in the opulent, sun-drenched dining room of the Vance estate. My husband, Daniel, was engaged in conversation with his father, oblivious. My mother-in-law, Evelyn Vance, impeccable as always in her silk dress, leaned in, her voice a practiced whisper, honeyed with faux concern, yet sharper than any blade. "Isabel, dear," she began, her perfectly manicured hand resting lightly on my forearm, "let's not drag this out. You need to leave my son." I paused, a delicate porcelain plate still in my hand. My smile, which had been polite, didn't falter. Her words, delivered with such casual cruelty, were a culmination of years of thinly veiled insults, of 1,000 tiny cuts designed to erode my self-worth. "You're just not Vance material," she'd imply, or "Daniel needs someone with pedigree." But this was different. This was a direct command, an eviction notice from a life I had built with Daniel. I met her gaze, a flicker of triumph in her cold blue eyes, convinced of her absolute power. She believed she held all the cards, that I was a simple woman, easily dismissed. She had no idea that her carefully constructed world, built on appearances and old money, was about to crumble. I simply nodded, the ghost of my smile still playing on my lips, and walked away. My seemingly docile departure was merely the first move in a game she didn't even know we were playing. My name is Isabel Thorne. I married into the prestigious Vance family, but my mother-in-law, Evelyn Vance, never truly accepted me, viewing me as not good enough for her elite world. Her relentless belittling culminated in a direct demand for my husband, Daniel, to leave me. What Evelyn, and indeed no one in the Vance family knew, was that I possessed a profound secret. I had quietly acquired controlling ownership of Heritage Inns, a coveted luxury boutique hotel chain that her family had been desperately trying to acquire for generations. This wasn't just about reclaiming my dignity, it was about exposing her schemes, avenging her cruelty, and proving that true power isn't about pedigree, but about foresight and quiet strength. My life before Daniel Vance was, by Evelyn's standards, entirely unremarkable. I grew up in a comfortable, but not opulent, middle-class family. My parents were academics, instilling in me a love for learning, critical thinking, and a quiet resilience. I pursued a degree in economics and finance, fascinated by the hidden mechanisms of markets and the art of strategic investment. I was never flashy. I preferred to operate beneath the radar, meticulously analyzing data, making calculated moves. This quiet aptitude for understanding financial complexities became my secret superpower, a skill I honed in the anonymity of the online trading world, far from the polished social circles I would later inhabit. I met Daniel Vance during a charity gala he reluctantly attended. He was charming, kind, and genuinely disarmed by my lack of pretension. We fell in love quickly, a whirlwind romance that bypassed the traditional vetting process of the Vance family. Daniel, though deeply good-hearted, was undeniably a product of his upbringing, a scion of old money, accustomed to a life of inherited privilege and subtle deference to his mother's exacting standards. He was kind, but easily influenced, especially by Evelyn. Evelyn Vance was the matriarch in every sense of the word, elegant, sharp-tongued, and utterly obsessed with appearances and the Vance legacy. She ruled her family with an iron fist wrapped in velvet gloves, her every word a carefully calibrated judgment. From the moment Daniel introduced me, I was subjected to her scrutiny. Her criticisms were never overt insults, but rather subtle slights. Comments about my unassuming wardrobe, my modest background, my lack of proper connections. She saw me as an intruder, a stain on the pristine tapestry of the Vance name. I tried to win her over, to prove my worth through quiet competence, but it was a futile exercise. Her mind was made up. I was simply not Vance material. The crown jewel of Evelyn's ambition, beyond maintaining the Vance family's social standing, was the acquisition of Heritage Inns. This was a collection of exquisite, historic boutique hotels spread across Europe and North America, renowned for their unparalleled luxury and timeless charm. For 3 generations, the Vance family had coveted this chain. It was considered the missing piece in their portfolio, the ultimate symbol of refined wealth and influence. The current owners, a reclusive and fiercely private European family, had always resisted acquisition, but Evelyn believed their resolve was weakening. She spoke about Heritage Inns with an almost religious fervor, detailing her family's numerous past attempts to acquire it, her frustration growing with each failed bid. She saw it as her ultimate triumph, the capstone of her life's work in solidifying the Vance name. What no one, especially Evelyn, knew was that while she was plotting her grand acquisition, I was quietly executing my own. Years before meeting Daniel, through meticulous research and anonymous financial maneuvering, I had identified Heritage Inns as a deeply undervalued asset with immense potential. Using my personal savings from early, successful investments and leveraging a network of discreet brokers, I had slowly and methodically acquired controlling shares in the chain through a series of shell corporations. My ownership was completely hidden, buried under layers of corporate anonymity, a ghost in the financial machine. I saw it purely as a shrewd business move, never imagining it would become the ultimate weapon in a personal war. My ability to operate silently, to build power without a trace, was a stark contrast to Evelyn's performative grandeur. She dismissed me as a simple girl, concerned only with social niceties, utterly oblivious to the quiet financial powerhouse she had allowed into her family. My secret was the ultimate leverage, waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed. The Sunday brunch was a typical affair at the Vance estate, lavish, meticulously arranged, and infused with an unspoken tension beneath the polished surface. The scent of roasted lamb and expensive coffee mingled in the air as family members conversed in hushed, polite tones. I was doing my part, clearing dessert plates, maintaining the quiet efficiency Evelyn so admired, while simultaneously despising. Daniel, my husband, was chatting with his cousin by the grand fireplace, seemingly unaware of the brewing storm. I moved towards the kitchen, a stack of delicate china in my hands, when Evelyn intercepted me by the ornate marble counter. She held a crystal flute of champagne, its bubbles reflecting the afternoon light, and leaned in, her voice a practiced whisper. It was the voice she used for intimate, confidential pronouncements, honeyed with faux concern, yet sharper than any blade. "Claire, dear," she began, using the name from the competitor's prompt, but let me correct that to Isabel, my chosen name for the protagonist. "Isabel, dear, let's not drag this out. You need to leave my son." I paused, a delicate porcelain plate still in my hand. My smile, which had been polite, didn't falter. My fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around the plate. The casualness of her delivery was chilling. There was no anger, no raised voice, just a cold, decisive command. "You're just not Vance material," she'd implied countless times, or "Daniel needs someone with pedigree." But this was different. This was a direct, explicit order to end my marriage, an eviction notice from a life I had built with Daniel. I met her gaze. Her cold blue eyes, usually assessing, now held a flicker of absolute triumph, convinced of her unwavering power. She believed she held all the cards, that I was a simple woman, easily dismissed, easily removed. "It's for Daniel's own good," she continued, her whisper barely audible, yet vibrating with authority. "He needs a partner who understands his world, someone who won't hold him back from his true potential. You just aren't suitable." My gaze drifted momentarily to Daniel, still by the fireplace, laughing at some anecdote. He caught my eye, offered a fleeting, almost apologetic smile, and then looked away, back to his cousin. No objection. No defense. His silence was a betrayal far deeper than his mother's cruel words. It was an acknowledgement, a quiet agreement to my dismissal. In that gut-wrenching moment, the last vestiges of hope for our marriage, for his loyalty, crumbled into dust. A wave of intense pain, followed by a surge of cold fury, washed over me. But outwardly, I remained perfectly calm. I simply nodded, the ghost of my smile still playing on my lips, and resumed walking towards the kitchen, the fragile porcelain steady in my hands. "I understand, Evelyn," I murmured, my voice soft, almost imperceptible. She didn't expect compliance. She expected tears, arguments, a scene. My seemingly docile departure, my calm acceptance, clearly threw her off balance. She watched me go, a puzzled frown creasing her brow, then shrugged, lifting her champagne glass to her lips. She had no idea that her carefully constructed world, built on appearances and old money, was about to crumble. My quiet acquiescence was merely the first, almost imperceptible, move in a game she didn't even know we were playing. The days and weeks following Evelyn's cruel pronouncement were a delicate dance of outward compliance and inward resolve. I calmly informed Daniel that I agreed to the divorce. His relief was palpable, though he tried to mask it with feigned sorrow. "Mother knows best, Isabel," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "It's for the best. We're just different." His weakness, once a source of frustration, now became my greatest advantage. They expected resistance, tears, a dramatic confrontation. My quiet acceptance disarmed them completely. Evelyn, convinced she had won effortlessly, began to act with even greater impunity. I maintained a composed demeanor throughout the divorce proceedings, agreeing to reasonable terms, making no demands beyond a fair division of our shared assets I cared little about, as my true wealth was already secured elsewhere. Daniel, feeling guilty, offered a more generous settlement, which I accepted with a placid smile, knowing it was merely a fraction of what I truly possessed. They saw my restraint as weakness, as a sign of my insignificance. This perception was crucial to my plan. While they celebrated their victory, I began to observe them more closely, a silent, meticulous hawk watching its prey. Evelyn and her team of advisors became increasingly overt in their strategies to acquire heritage inns. I listened to their phone calls, subtly monitored their emails, using skills I had honed over years in anonymous digital finance, and observed their meetings. They were aggressive, attempting to force the reclusive European family to sell by spreading rumors about their financial difficulties and leveraging their extensive network of influence. Evelyn spoke openly, often at family dinners I still, for a brief period, attended, about finally securing our legacy and how heritage inns would complete the Vance empire. She was so consumed by her grand ambition, so certain of her impending triumph, that she never once suspected the true owner was sitting across the table, sipping her tea. As Evelyn's efforts to acquire heritage inns intensified, so did her frustration. Her well-oiled machine, accustomed to effortless victories, began to encounter unexpected obstacles. Every time her team presented an offer, a higher, anonymous bid would mysteriously emerge. Every time they thought they had secured a meeting with the reclusive owners, the meeting would be delayed or canceled. She blamed stubborn Europeans, unforeseen market fluctuations, or jealous rivals. She never once considered that the source of her woes was the woman she had so easily discarded. My role was subtle, precise, and entirely untraceable. I wasn't just outbidding them, I was strategically complicating the process. I employed ghost companies to make tantalizing but ultimately non-committal offers, driving up the price and exhausting their resources. I subtly leaked information to environmental regulators about minor, easily rectifiable issues at some of the heritage inn's properties, causing delays in their due diligence. I even managed to spread rumors through the European financial circuits about a potential, major, independent acquisition, making the current owners even more cautious about selling to an aggressive, well-known family like the Vances. Evelyn's polished facade began to crack under the strain. She would snap at Daniel, reprimand her advisors publicly, and her voice, once honeyed, became sharp with exasperation. Daniel, caught in the middle, looked increasingly worn, trying to mediate between his mother's escalating demands and the mysterious, unseen forces hindering their progress. He would often complain to me, during our occasional, awkward meetings to finalize divorce details, about how stubborn the Heritage-Inn's people are. I would simply nod sympathetically, offering vague, reassuring words, my internal satisfaction growing with each new obstacle they faced. They were pouring millions into an acquisition that was slipping further and further from their grasp, while my own, unseen financial resources were being deployed with surgical precision, turning their dream into a bottomless money pit. The pressure on Evelyn reached its breaking point. Desperate to secure Heritage-Inns and save face after months of setbacks, she declared that the Vance family would host a lavish gala. This wasn't just a social event, it was a carefully orchestrated maneuver to publicly announce their imminent acquisition of the hotel chain, forcing the current owner's hand and sending a message to any interfering parties. Invitations were sent to every influential figure in the industry, every major media outlet, and every socialite who mattered. It was to be Evelyn's crowning moment, the definitive proof of the Vance family's unwavering power. I received an invitation, a final, thinly veiled insult meant to show me what I was missing. I RSVP'd with a cryptic, single word, attending. Evelyn probably assumed I was still clinging to a desperate hope of re-entry into their circle. She had no idea I was coming not as a guest, but as an executioner. Over the preceding weeks, I made my final preparations. I consolidated my ownership of Heritage-Inns, ensuring every legal document was flawlessly in place, every shell company's veil lifted to reveal my sole control. I also gathered undeniable evidence of Evelyn's ruthless tactics during the acquisition attempt, including proof of her attempts to manipulate the market and intimidate the former owners. The night of the gala arrived. The Vance estate glittered under a canopy of fairy lights, filled with the city's elite. Evelyn, resplendent in a diamond necklace, beamed with a chilling confidence, greeting guests and hinting at a major announcement. Daniel, looking relieved, stood by her side, believing their troubles were finally over. I arrived discreetly, dressed in a simple, elegant gown that contrasted sharply with the extravagant displays around me, blending into the crowd. I watched Evelyn's smug face, her triumphant smiles, her self-congratulatory whispers. She was basking in the glory of a victory that was entirely premature. The tension in the air, for me, was not anticipation, but the quiet hum of a perfectly timed detonator. The microphone was about to be passed to Evelyn for her grand announcement, and I was ready to deliver the ultimate surprise. The grand ballroom hushed as Evelyn Vance, radiating an almost unbearable smugness, approached the podium. She clutched a sealed envelope, a prop designed to add dramatic weight to her imminent acquisition of Heritage-Inns. Daniel stood proudly beside her, a relieved smile on his face, believing their troubles were finally over. This was to be Evelyn's defining moment, the public affirmation of her family's power and her own shrewdness. My heart pounded, not with nerves, but with the potent thrill of absolute control. I stood near the back, an unassuming figure, watching her every move. "My dear friends, esteemed colleagues," Evelyn began, her voice resonating with theatrical triumph, "it is with immense pleasure that I announce tonight, after generations of effort, that the Vance family is officially concluding negotiations to acquire the prestigious Heritage-Inns collection. This marks a new era for our legacy, a testament to." Before she could finish, the large screens flanking the stage, previously displaying the Vance family crest, abruptly flickered and changed. They didn't show the Heritage-Inns logo. Instead, a complex, legally binding document appeared, clearly displaying a different entity as the sole controlling owner of Heritage-Inns. Below it, a live feed of the public corporate registry updated in real time, showing a series of meticulously planned, anonymous transactions culminating in a single name, Isabel Thorne. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Evelyn's voice died in her throat. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, stared at the screen, then darted to the envelope in her hand, then to me. Her meticulously crafted facade shattered, revealing raw, unadulterated horror. A calm, clear voice, amplified by the ballroom's sound system, cut through the rising murmur. It was mine. "Excuse me, Evelyn," I stated, stepping forward, my voice resonating with an authority that stunned the crowd. "There seems to be a misunderstanding. The Vance family is not concluding negotiations. The deal for Heritage Inns was concluded weeks ago. It was acquired in its entirety by Thorne Acquisitions. And as of this morning, Thorne Acquisitions is fully owned by me." I walked slowly towards the stage, my eyes locked on Evelyn's ashen face. Daniel, pale and trembling, could only stare, his jaw slack. As I reached the podium, I took the microphone from Evelyn's nerveless hand. "You see," I continued, my voice calm, "while you were busy dismissing me as not good enough and plotting your grand acquisition, I was quietly securing it. Every mysterious, higher bid, every unforeseen delay in your due diligence, every stubborn refusal you encountered, that was me. Your arrogance blinded you to the fact that the simple woman you discarded was already 2 steps ahead, building an empire you coveted, right under your very noses. On the screens, I then projected irrefutable evidence, the detailed financial manipulation Evelyn's team had attempted, their unethical pressure tactics on the previous owners, their desperate last-minute bids. It was all laid bare. The room erupted in a furious murmur. Journalists rushed forward, cameras flashed wildly, capturing Evelyn's public humiliation. Her face contorted, a mixture of rage and utter defeat. She tried to lunge at me, but Daniel, finally snapping out of his stupor, held her back. The woman who had proudly commanded her son to leave me was now a screaming, disheveled mess, her perfect world crumbling around her. "When you told Daniel to leave me," I concluded, my voice clear and steady, "you didn't just ruin his life. You made your greatest enemy. And when you discovered I owned everything you had schemed for, it was already too late." The surprise was complete. In the immediate aftermath of that infamous gala, Evelyn Vance's carefully constructed world imploded with catastrophic speed. The public humiliation, amplified by relentless media scrutiny, shattered her social standing. The exposure of her ruthless and unethical acquisition tactics led to swift condemnation from within her own elite circles. Her family, once fiercely loyal, distanced themselves from her, eager to escape the fallout. The Vance name, once synonymous with prestige, was now stained with scandal. Daniel, caught in the crossfire of his mother's downfall and his own complicity, became a pariah. His weak nature, once tolerated, was now a glaring weakness that cost him everything. He lost his social standing, his access to his mother's dwindling influence, and the respect of his peers. Our divorce was finalized swiftly, without a single objection from him, leaving him with little more than the bitter taste of regret. As for me, Isabel Thorne, I finally stepped into the light, not as Daniel Vance's ex-wife, but as the formidable owner of Heritage Inns. The media, initially hungry for scandal, soon shifted their focus to my quiet business acumen and strategic genius. I revealed my background in anonymous finance, showcasing my ability to build wealth and power independently, without the need for inherited titles or social validation. I dedicated myself to restoring Heritage Inns, focusing on its core values of genuine luxury and ethical management, which had been overlooked in Evelyn's relentless pursuit of acquisition. Under my leadership, the hotel chain thrived, expanding its portfolio and enhancing its already stellar reputation. I often think about Evelyn, now a recluse, her life a shadow of its former grandeur. She believed that pedigree and social standing were everything, that someone like me could never be good enough for her family or capable of navigating their world. She thought she was discarding a weakness, but in reality, she was discarding her future. Her desperate scheme to acquire heritage inns, a symbol of everything she coveted, became the very instrument of her undoing. The irony was exquisite. The journey to reclaim my dignity and my future was arduous, filled with silent determination and calculated risks. But it taught me a profound truth. True power isn't about the name you inherit or the circles you move in. It's about what you build, what you know, and what you're willing to fight for. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply living a life they thought you were too small to have, proving that the most dangerous opponent is the one they never saw coming.